Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a place where the ground beneath your feet is warm, not from the sun, but from the molten rock churning just a few kilometers below the surface. Where the air smells faintly of sulfur and salt. Where you can stand in a field of ancient black lava, look to your left and see a glacier. Look to your right, a volcano. Look up. If you're lucky, the entire sky is on fire with colors that don't belong in the natural world. Now open your eyes, because that place is real. And its name is Iceland. I've traveled to a lot of places. I've stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon and felt small. I've walked through the ruins of ancient Rome and felt the weight of history. I've watched the sun rise over the temples of Angkor Wat and felt something close to spiritual. But Iceland did something different to me. Iceland didn't just make me feel small or humbled or inspired. Iceland made me feel like I had left Earth entirely. And I think that's the only honest way to describe it. This is not a postcard destination. This is not a place you visit to relax on a beach or eat at a Michelin-starred restaurant and go home feeling refreshed. Iceland is the kind of place that grabs you by the collar the moment you step off the plane and doesn't let go until long after you've returned home. Stays with you. It haunts you in the best possible way. Here's something most people don't know about Iceland. It is one of the youngest landmasses on the planet. The island is still being built. Right now, as you watch this, magma is pushing up through fissures in the earth, cooling into new rock, expanding the island centimeter by centimeter. Iceland is not finished. It is a work in progress. A living, breathing, constantly evolving piece of the planet. And humans? We are just the latest guest. The first people to call Iceland home were Norse Vikings who arrived in the 9th century, around 874 AD. They sailed here on wooden longships across one of the most brutal stretches of ocean in the world, with no GPS, no weather satellites, no guarantee of survival. And when they arrived, they found an island that was both terrifying and magnificent. Active volcanoes. Geysers shooting boiling water into the sky. Glaciers the size of entire countries. Rivers too powerful to cross. Winters so dark the sun barely rises for months. They stayed anyway, because they recognized something that every person who comes here eventually feels. There is nowhere else on Earth quite like this. In 930 AD, right here in Iceland, something remarkable happened that most people never learn in school. A group of Viking settlers gathered in a rift valley, a crack in the earth formed by two tectonic plates pulling apart, and they created one of the oldest parliaments in human history. They called it the Althing. No king presided over it. No emperor. Ordinary people, farmers, traders, chieftains, sat together, debated laws, settled disputes, and made collective decisions. While the rest of the medieval world was living under monarchies and feudal systems, Iceland was experimenting with something that looked an awful lot like democracy. That spirit, independent, stubborn, deeply connected to the land, is still alive in Iceland today. But let me be honest with you. You didn't click on this video just for the history lesson. You clicked because somewhere in the thumbnail or the title or maybe just in your gut, you felt something. A pull. A curiosity. That little voice that says, I need to see this place. So let me tell you what we're going to do for the next hour. We are going to travel across one of the most extraordinary islands on the face of the earth. We are going to stand between two continents at the same time. We are going to watch the ground explode. We are going to walk behind waterfalls, drive across lava deserts, soak in hot springs in the middle of nowhere, and if the sky cooperates, and in Iceland the sky has its own agenda, we are going to watch the northern lights paint the darkness in colors that no camera, including ours, can fully do justice. We are going to eat lamb slow-cooked in geothermal steam. We are going to visit a village so remote that the nearest traffic light is over 300 kilometers away. We are going to hear stories that are over 1,000 years old, told by people who still know them by heart. Because in Iceland, the past is never really that far away. And through all of it, I want you to feel what I felt when I was there. Not just awe, though there will be plenty of that, but something deeper. A reminder that this planet we live on is far more dramatic, far more alive, and far more strange than our everyday lives allow us to remember. Iceland will remind you. Welcome to the edge of the world. Let's go. Let's talk about how Iceland came to be. Not just the geology, though the geology alone will blow your mind, but the full story. The fire, the ice, the people, and the impossible odds they overcame just to survive here. Roughly 16 to 18 million years ago, there was nothing here. Just open ocean. Cold, dark, and empty. Beneath the surface, however, two of the Earth's largest tectonic plates, the North American plate and the Eurasian plate, were slowly pulling apart from each other. As they separated, magma from deep within the Earth's mantle rose up to fill the gap. Over millions of years, that magma cooled, hardened, and accumulated. Layer by layer, eruption by eruption, Iceland was born. It didn't rise from the sea all at once. It was built slowly, violently, and it is still being built today. Iceland sits directly on top of a volcanic hotspot, a column of superheated magma punching straight up through the Earth's crust. This is why Iceland has more active volcanoes than almost anywhere else on the planet. This is why the ground steams. This is why rivers run warm. The island is essentially a lid sitting on top of a furnace, and occasionally, the furnace wins. In 1783, a volcanic fissure called Laki erupted for 8 straight months. It released so much sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere that it triggered a famine across Iceland, killing a quarter of the entire population. The ash cloud spread across Europe and is believed to have contributed to the catastrophic crop failures that fueled the French Revolution. One volcano, on a remote island in the North Atlantic, and it helped change the course of world history. That is the kind of place Iceland is. But here is what makes Iceland truly extraordinary: it is not just a geological wonder. It is a human one. Because despite all of this, the eruptions, the brutal winters, the isolation, the darkness, people chose to come here and make it their home. And the culture they built is unlike anything else in the world. The first permanent settler, according to Icelandic sagas, was a Norse chieftain named Ingolfur Arnarsson. He arrived in 874 AD with his family, his slaves, and everything he owned loaded onto a longship. As he approached the coast, he threw 2 carved wooden pillars, his high seat pillars sacred to his household, into the sea. He vowed to build his home wherever the gods guided them to shore. 3 years later, his slaves found the pillars in a bay surrounded by steam rising from hot springs. He named it Reykjavik, Smoky Bay. That name has not changed in over 1,000 years. Within decades, Iceland filled with settlers, Norse Vikings fleeing political upheaval in Norway, Celtic people from the British Isles, and a mix of free men and enslaved people from across the Viking world. They brought with them their language, their mythology, their traditions, and they adapted all of it to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. And then, in 930 AD, they did something that stunned the world, or would have, if the world had been paying attention. They created the Althing, one of the oldest functioning parliaments in recorded history. Every summer, chieftains and free men from across the island gathered at Ingvellir, the plains of Parliament, to debate laws, resolve disputes, and govern themselves without a king, without an emperor, without a conqueror telling them what to do. It was radical. It was democratic. And it happened right here, over 1,000 years ago, in a rift valley where you can literally see the earth splitting apart beneath your feet. Iceland's history is not just old. It is alive. There is a specific feeling that hits you the moment you land in Iceland. It's not excitement exactly, though you feel that too. It's something harder to name. Something between disbelief and recognition. Like your brain is trying to process a landscape it has no reference point for. The approach into Keflavik Airport already does something to you. If you fly in during daylight, look out the window. Below you there are no forests, no farmland patchwork, no winding rivers lined with trees. There is only black. Vast, ancient, unbroken fields of volcanic rock, stretching in every direction as far as you can see, draped in a thin layer of pale green moss that looks almost luminous from the air. It looks like the surface of another planet. And that thought, that specific thought, will come back to you over and over again during your time in Iceland. The drive from the airport to Reykjavik takes about 45 minutes, and almost none of it looks like anything you have seen before. The lava fields on either side of the highway have been here for thousands of years. Some of them are remnants of eruptions that happened before a single human being ever set foot on this island. The moss covering them is extraordinarily fragile. It grows only a few millimeters per year, meaning that a single footprint can leave a visible scar for decades. Iceland asks you from the very first moment to tread lightly. By the time you reach Reykjavik, the strangeness softens into something warmer. Colorful corrugated iron houses line the streets, practical, sturdy, built to survive North Atlantic winters. Street murals cover entire building sides. The smell of geothermal water drifts from the taps. And towering above everything, visible from almost every point in the city, is the Hallgrímskirkja, a concrete church that looks like it was carved from a column of volcanic basalt, reaching 74 meters into the gray sky like a declaration. This is Reykjavik, the world's northernmost capital, home to just over 130,000 people. Small enough to walk across in an afternoon. Big enough, somehow, to feel like the center of everything. You have arrived. And Iceland is only just beginning. If there is one route in Iceland that every first-time visitor takes, it is the Golden Circle. A roughly 300-kilometer loop from Reykjavik that connects three of the most jaw-dropping natural sights on the island. Most people do it in a single day. And while it is arguably the most tourist-traveled road in the entire country, there is a very good reason for that, because what you find along it is genuinely, almost unfairly, spectacular. The first stop is Ingvellir National Park. We touched on its history in Part 2, the Viking Parliament, the birth of Icelandic democracy, but standing inside it is an entirely different experience from hearing about it. The valley is enormous, quiet in a way that feels intentional. On one side, the ground drops away sharply into a long, jagged canyon, the visible edge of the North American tectonic plate. On the other side, the Eurasian plate rises gently toward the horizon. And in between you walk, literally between two continents, on a strip of earth that belongs to neither and both at the same time. Beneath your feet, the canyon fills with glacial meltwater so clear it is almost invisible. This is Silfra, one of the most famous dive sites in the world. People come from every corner of the planet to snorkel or scuba dive in water that is so pure, so filtered through volcanic rock over decades, that you can drink it while you swim. The visibility underwater stretches over 100 meters. You can reach out and touch both tectonic plates at the same time with your hands. There are not many places on Earth where you can do that. The second stop on the Golden Circle is the Geysir geothermal area. And this is where Iceland stops being merely beautiful and becomes something almost theatrical. The original Great Geyser, the geyser that gave every other geyser on Earth its name, still exists here, though it erupts rarely these days. Its neighbor, Strákar, makes up for it entirely. Every 5 to 10 minutes, without warning, a dome of superheated water bulges up from the Earth, trembles for a fraction of a second, and then explodes 30 meters into the cold Icelandic air in a column of boiling water and steam. You cannot get used to it. No matter how many times you watch it happen, your body reacts the same way every single time. A sharp intake of breath, a step backward, and then laughter. Pure, involuntary, disbelieving laughter. Because your brain simply cannot accept that the ground just did that. The third stop is Gullfoss, the Golden Waterfall. And if Ingvellir is Iceland's history and Geysir is Iceland's drama, then Gullfoss is Iceland's raw, overwhelming power. The Hvida River, fed by one of Iceland's largest glaciers, narrows and then drops in two massive tiers into a canyon 70 meters deep, sending up a permanent cloud of mist that drifts across the surrounding landscape like slow-moving weather. On a clear day, rainbows form and dissolve in the spray continuously. In winter, parts of the falls freeze completely, and the ice formations that build up around the edges are almost architectural in their complexity. But the story behind Gullfoss is just as powerful as the waterfall itself. In the early 20th century, foreign investors wanted to dam the river and build a hydroelectric power plant. A young Icelandic woman named Sigrid Thomasdottir, whose family farmed the surrounding land, refused to accept it. She walked barefoot all the way to Reykjavik, over 100 kilometers, to protest the decision. She threatened to throw herself into the falls if the plans went ahead. Eventually, the deal collapsed due to financing issues and Gullfoss was saved. Today, a monument stands near the waterfall in her honor. Iceland's first environmentalist. Remembered not in a parliament or a history book, but beside the thing she loved enough to fight for. Here is the truth about Iceland that most travel content won't tell you. The famous sites, as extraordinary as they are only the surface. Underneath the Golden Circle and the Ring Road and the Blue Lagoon, there is another Iceland entirely. Wilder, quieter, harder to reach, and in many ways far more extraordinary than anything on the tourist trail. The Icelandic Highlands are the largest uninhabited wilderness in Europe. No roads connect them in winter. No towns. No services. Just raw, wind-scoured terrain that stretches across the interior of the island like a landscape from the beginning of time. Rhyolite mountains painted in shades of red, orange, yellow, and green that seem almost artificial. Colors so vivid and so unlikely that your camera simply refuses to believe they are real. In a region called Landmannalágar, you can hike between mountains that look like they were set on fire and never quite stopped burning. The rock is volcanic obsidian and rhyolite, streaked with mineral deposits that color the hillsides in gradients no artist could convincingly recreate. And at the end of a long day of hiking, natural hot springs bubble up from the earth directly into a cold river, creating a bath of perfect temperature right there in the open wilderness. No building, no entrance fee, no crowds. Just you, the mountains, and water heated by the same geological forces that built this island millions of years ago. Further south, hidden away from the main highway, is Fjarðarfjörður, a canyon so dramatic and so unexpected that it stops people cold the moment they see it. Nearly 100 meters deep and about 2 kilometers long, its walls are layered with ancient rock formations, draped in thick green moss, carved by a river that has been cutting through the same stone for 9,000 years. It is the kind of place that makes you feel like you have stumbled onto a film set, except no set designer on Earth could build something this precise. Iceland rewards the curious. The ones willing to leave the main road, take the slower route, ask the local at the petrol station what they should not miss. Because the most extraordinary things here are almost never the ones on the map. They are the ones just beyond it. You can spend an entire trip in Iceland chasing waterfalls and volcanoes and never once stop to ask the most interesting question of all. What is it actually like to live here? Because Iceland is not just a landscape. It is a community, a culture. A people who have spent over 1,000 years figuring out how to not only survive in one of the most extreme environments on Earth, but how to genuinely thrive in it. And the more time you spend with Icelandic people, the more you realize that the land has shaped them just as dramatically as it shaped the volcanoes and the glaciers. Start with the basics. Iceland has a population of roughly 370,000 people. That is smaller than most mid-sized cities. The entire country has fewer residents than Coventry in England, or Corpus Christi in Texas. And yet it has its own language, one of the oldest and most preserved languages in the Germanic family, so close to Old Norse that modern Icelanders can still read the Viking sagas written over 800 years ago as though they were written last century. Think about that for a moment. While the rest of the world's languages have drifted, merged, evolved beyond recognition, Icelandic has stayed almost perfectly still, a living linguistic fossil. A direct line to the Viking Age, spoken in supermarkets and text messages in government offices every single day. The Icelandic relationship with their landscape borders on spiritual. Most Icelanders will tell you without a trace of embarrassment that they believe in the Huldufolk, the hidden people. Elves, in the most simplified translation, though the concept is far more nuanced than the word suggests. These are beings said to live inside rocks and hills and cliffs across the island. And this is not a quaint folk tradition kept alive for tourists. Road construction projects in Iceland have been rerouted, officially with government acknowledgement, to avoid disturbing rocks believed to be inhabited by hidden people. Infrastructure decisions in a modern European country, influenced by centuries-old belief in the living spirit of the landscape. That tells you everything about how Icelanders see their land. Not as scenery, not as a resource, as something alive. Something that deserves to be treated with respect. Daily life here has a rhythm unlike anywhere else. In summer, the sun barely sets. The famous midnight sun means that at the height of the season, it is still bright enough to read outside at 2 in the morning. People stay up later. Children play outside at midnight. The whole country seems to run on a different clock, one calibrated not to the watch on your wrist but to the light in the sky. In winter, the opposite. Darkness descends for the better part of the day. The sun rises late and sets early, leaving only a few hours of pale, golden light before the night returns. And rather than retreat from it, Icelanders lean in. They light candles. They fill their homes with warmth. They gather. There is a word in Icelandic, and in the wider Nordic world, for this practice of finding coziness and contentment in the darkness. The Danes call it huga. Icelanders simply call it living. Spend an evening in a small Reykjavik restaurant, eating slow-roasted lamb that has spent its entire life grazing on wild Arctic herbs, drinking a local craft beer, listening to Icelandic music that sounds like it was composed by the landscape itself, and you will understand something about this country that no amount of waterfall footage can fully communicate. Iceland is not just a place you visit. It is a place that changes the way you think about home. Every place has its defining moment. The event that, more than any other, reveals something essential about the character of that place and the people who live there. For Iceland, that moment came in the summer of 1783. And what happened in the months that followed was so catastrophic, so far-reaching in its consequences, that historians are still tracing its effects today. It began, as so many Icelandic stories do, with the ground. On the 8th of June 1783, a 27-kilometer-long fissure cracked open in the south of Iceland. From this fissure, called Laki, an estimated 14 cubic kilometers of lava began to pour out across the surrounding landscape. But the lava itself was not the most dangerous thing Laki released. Over the 8 months that the eruption continued, the fissure pumped an estimated 120 million tons of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. A toxic cloud, what contemporaries described as a dry fog, drifted across Iceland first, then across the whole of Europe, and eventually around the entire northern hemisphere. In Iceland, the immediate consequences were devastating. The sulfur dioxide mixed with moisture in the air to create acid rain that poisoned the grass across the entire island. Livestock that did not die from the fluoride poisoning released by the eruption starved because there was nothing left to eat. Crops failed completely. Rivers turned acidic. Fish died in their thousands. Within 2 years, Iceland had lost an estimated 50 to 60% of its livestock. And then the famine came. In the years that followed the Laki eruption, roughly 10,000 Icelanders died of starvation and disease. That was 1/4 of the entire population of the island. 1 in every 4 people. Gone. The Danish crown, which governed Iceland at the time, briefly considered evacuating the entire surviving population and abandoning Iceland altogether. The island, they reasoned, might simply be too dangerous for permanent human habitation. The Icelanders refused to leave. That decision, stubborn, defiant, deeply characteristic of the people who had chosen this impossible island as their home, is one of the reasons Iceland exists as a country today. But the story of Laki does not end at Iceland's borders. That sulfur dioxide cloud that drifted east across Europe did something that scientists and historians have been piecing together for decades. It lowered temperatures across the northern hemisphere. It destroyed harvests across France, already a country stretched to breaking point by poverty, inequality, and a monarchy increasingly detached from the suffering of its people. The brutal winter of 1784, linked directly to the atmospheric effects of the Laki eruption, contributed to the food shortages and social pressures that would, just 5 years later, explode into the French Revolution. One volcanic fissure, on a remote island in the North Atlantic, and its smoke drifted across the world and helped end a monarchy. Iceland has always been bigger than it looks on the map. Iceland has 2 skies, and depending on when you visit, you will get one or the other, or if you are extraordinarily lucky, both. In summer, the sky simply refuses to go dark. The midnight sun is not a metaphor or a tourist exaggeration. It is a genuine, disorienting, magnificent reality. At the peak of summer, the sun traces a long, slow arc across the horizon and never quite dips below it. The light at midnight is the same golden amber light you'd expect at 7 in the evening back home. Soft, warm, long-shadowed. Photographers call it the golden hour. In Iceland in June, the golden hour lasts all night. It does something strange to your sense of time. Your body tells you it is late. The clock confirms it. But the sky looks like late afternoon and your brain simply cannot reconcile the two. Icelanders grow up calibrating their lives around this. Blackout curtains are not a luxury here, they are a necessity. But as a visitor, do yourself a favor at least once. Stay up. Walk outside at 1 in the morning and just look. The light on the mountains at that hour is unlike anything photography can fully capture. Then there is the winter sky. And this is the one that most people come for. The northern lights, aurora borealis, are caused by charged particles from the sun colliding with gases in Earth's atmosphere, producing curtains of light that ripple and shift across the night sky in waves of green, violet, white, and occasionally deep red. The science is elegant. The experience is something else entirely. No description does it justice. No photograph fully captures the movement, the scale, the silence surrounding it. You stand in a frozen field, breath clouding in the cold air, and above you the sky begins to move. Slowly at first, a faint green smear on the horizon that you almost convince yourself is just cloud. And then it builds. It spreads. It folds and twists and accelerates, and within minutes the entire sky is alive with something that your eyes recognize as light but your brain refuses to fully categorize. People cry. Grown adults, seasoned travelers, people who have seen extraordinary things across the world, they stand in Icelandic fields in -10 degrees and they cry. Not from cold. From something much harder to name. Iceland gives you 2 skies. Both of them will change you. Iceland is one of the most rewarding destinations on Earth. It is also one of the most unforgiving if you arrive unprepared. So before we reach our final thoughts, here is what you actually need to know before you go. The best time to visit depends entirely on what you are chasing. Come between June and August for the midnight sun, green landscapes, accessible highland roads, and long warm days perfect for hiking. Come between October and March for the northern lights, dramatic winter scenery, frozen waterfalls, and the deep, contemplative darkness that makes Icelandic culture come alive in a completely different way. There is no wrong answer, only different Icelands. Rent a car. This is non-negotiable. Iceland is not a place you experience adequately from a tour bus window. The freedom to pull over whenever the landscape demands it, and it will demand it constantly, is essential to understanding what this country actually is. A 4-wheel drive is strongly recommended if you plan to venture beyond the main ring road, particularly in winter or if you intend to explore the highlands. Respect the land with absolute seriousness. Iceland's ecosystems are ancient and extraordinarily fragile. The moss covering the lava fields takes decades to grow back from a single footprint. Stay on marked trails. Do not cross barriers. Do not approach active volcanic areas without proper guidance. The landscape here is not a backdrop. It is a living system and it deserves to be treated as one. Budget honestly. Iceland is expensive. Accommodation, petrol, food, and activities all carry a price tag that surprises most first-time visitors. Plan for it rather than discover it at the checkout. The experience is worth every krona, but only if you are not spending the whole trip anxious about money. And finally, leave room for the unexpected. The best moments in Iceland are rarely the ones on the itinerary. There is a moment that happens to almost everyone who visits Iceland. It does not happen at the same place for everyone. For some it is standing at the edge of Gullfoss with the spray soaking their jacket and the roar of the water drowning out every other sound. For others it is lying on their back in a frozen field at 2 in the morning watching the northern lights move across the sky in silence. For some it happens quietly, unexpectedly, sitting in a small Reykjavik cafe, hands wrapped around a hot coffee, watching rain streak down the window while Icelandic music plays softly in the background. The moment is different for everyone, but the feeling is always the same. It is the feeling of perspective. Of suddenly, without warning, seeing your own life from a great distance. The way you might look down at a city from an airplane and realize, with a start, how small each individual street actually is. Iceland has a way of doing that to a person. Of holding up a mirror not to your face but to your sense of scale. Your sense of what matters. Your sense of how much of what you worry about on an ordinary Tuesday is, in the long and geological sweep of things, approximately nothing at all. I want to be careful here because I do not want to make Iceland sound like a self-help retreat. It is not. It is a country. A real one with traffic and politics and people who are late for work and stressed about their mortgages just like everywhere else. Iceland is not a fantasy. It does not solve anything. But it does remind you of something. Something important. Something that the pace and noise of modern life is extraordinarily good at making you forget. It reminds you that this planet is alive. Not alive in the metaphorical way we sometimes use that word when we talk about a vibrant city or a busy market. Alive in the most literal, physical, geological sense. The ground beneath your feet in Iceland is moving. The magma beneath it is circulating, pressurizing, finding weaknesses and pushing through them. The glaciers above it are shifting, millimeter by millimeter, grinding the rock beneath them into powder over centuries. The tectonic plates on either side of it are pulling apart from each other at roughly the same speed your fingernails grow, and in 10 million years the gap between them will be an ocean. You are standing on a planet that is in the middle of doing something. A planet that started a process billions of years ago and has not finished yet. A planet that is, by any reasonable measure, indifferent to your presence, and yet somehow, impossibly, produced conditions precise enough to create you, and eyes capable of appreciating what they see, and a brain complex enough to be moved by it. Iceland makes that real in a way that reading about it never quite does. I think about the Vikings who sailed here in the 9th century. The ones who threw their pillars overboard and trusted the ocean to guide them. Who looked at this smoking, erupting, frozen, storm-lashed island and decided, this is where we build our lives. I think about Sigrid Thomasdottir walking barefoot across 100 kilometers of Icelandic landscape to save a waterfall. I think about the 10,000 people who died after Laki erupted, and the survivors who were offered evacuation and said no. Who looked at everything they had lost and chose to stay anyway on this impossible island because it was theirs. There is something in that stubbornness, that deep, almost irrational attachment to a piece of land, that I find profoundly moving, because it speaks to something universal. Something that has nothing to do with Iceland specifically and everything to do with what it means to belong somewhere. To love a place not because it is easy or comfortable or safe, but because it is yours. Because it made you. Because leaving it would mean leaving part of yourself behind. Iceland did not make me. I was a visitor. A guest passing through for a few extraordinary weeks. But it gave me something I did not know I was missing before I arrived. A renewed sense of wonder. Not the manufactured wonder of a theme park or a curated experience, but the raw, unearned, completely overwhelming wonder of standing in front of something so much older and larger and more powerful than yourself that your ego simply dissolves. Quietly. Without drama. Like mist burning off a lava field in the morning sun. That is the gift Iceland gives if you let it. And I think that is why people who come here almost always come back. Not because they did not see enough the first time, though Iceland is large enough and varied enough that you could return a dozen times and still find something new. but because the feeling it gives you is not something you can hold on to indefinitely back in the ordinary world. It fades the way dreams fade. And eventually you find yourself looking at flights again, half convinced you imagine the whole thing, needing to go back just to confirm that yes, it is real. It exists. The ground really does steam. The sky really does dance. The waterfalls really are that loud. It all really happened. So if Iceland is on your list, move it to the top. Not because the photos are beautiful, though they are. Not because it is trending, though it is. But because there are very few places left on this earth that can make a modern, distracted, screen-addicted human being stop completely. Put the phone down, look up, and feel for just a moment like a small and grateful guest on a magnificent, living, breathing planet. Iceland is one of those places, and you owe it to yourself to go.